So just to add to Gwen's comments, I think sometimes innovation requires an ecosystem. And I think if you look at Iceland 75, 100 years ago, the geothermal resources, what looks like abundant resources now, didn't look the same. And Cordova is much the same way. 110 years ago, Cordova is really just a native village. A discovery of copper resulted in building the largest private railroad in the world at the time, 220 miles long, to a rich copper vein that closed in 1938 and was pretty much economic collapse of the community. Then the razor clam industry rose to the largest in the world. They reinvented themselves as a fantastic seafood port, but the 1964 Alaska earthquake raised all of the land 8 feet and destroyed the clam beds. So we reinvented ourselves as a general seafood port, especially salmon and ground fish, and it became one of the leaders in the world. The Copper River salmon marketing effort is just amazing. It's considered the best in the world. But then we had a little uh-oh in 1989 with the Exxon Valdez oil spill that decimated our fisheries. Then we really had to rebuild our fisheries, and amazingly enough, as strong as they were in the late 80s, we've come out of it even more vibrant. So Cordova is now the 13th largest seafood port in the United States. For 2,300 people, we have about $100 million annual economy. And it's really been a lot of the infrastructure investments we've made in renewable energy that also brought down the price of that energy and of our seafood processing partners that got us to where we are now. But I think it's important to understand those scarce resources, a need, and a constant reinventing of yourselves and taking yourself to a better place each time. Resilience is thrown around a lot now, but that's really something that's a core of Cordova Electric, which is a cooperative, and it's important to understand the cooperative model because it's a utility that's actually owned by the ratepayers. So they get to reach all the way up to their own generators that they own, and they get to make value decisions. They can make decisions and investments that they think are of high value to the community and not just a profit. And they don't think just in terms of the utility, they think in terms of the community. Something that's really been helpful as mayor to better understand what are the social and economic needs of the community that transcend the energy needs. And to get there, we required a lot of partners, our tribes, our federal government, our state government, and their funding and technical resources, and our own Skunk Works and Arctic Laboratory, the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. So we live in a challenging environment in the Arctic, and much like Iceland, we face avalanches, volcanoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, and they take a toll on your system. So as we formed a cooperative in 1978, independence, energy security, and self-reliance were actually more important than the cost and environmental factors. So we set a policy to use local sources of energy, which fortunately are also environmentally friendly, but we also buried all of our underground power lines. Every time we got hit by an event like these floods and some of the pictures you see here, we redesigned, rebuilt, and took those projects to an even better and higher performance in the much the same way the community does. And so adaptation has been a key part of our path to the prosperity we have now. So when Senator Murkowski hosted a Senate Energy and Natural Resources field hearing, she brought some National Labs technical staff with her. And when they looked around at Cordova and our grid, which is kind of laid out here for the community, they realized that we had highly automated our entire system so that we don't even have to man the plants. Our operators can be called out by alarms on the system and respond and operate the system from home and fix the problems. They realized that as they were trying to figure out ways to improve the grid and make it secure from physical and cyber threats, that we were kind of quietly off on our corner just doing it. And nobody had told us that we couldn't. So because of the value that we need out of it, we can't really wait for some of these things to happen. So they partnered with us, and what is now the single largest grid modernization project in the entire United States is housed in Cordova, Alaska. I think that's pretty neat. So innovation is our path to the future. And as we look to smart grid and smart city capabilities, Internet of Things devices, we're adopting those not because they're fun or because it's a concept or a construct. It's because we have to squeeze multiple value streams out of each investment. So if we have highly automated meters that can talk to each other and communicate, we can also communicate healthcare, from a patient's onboard devices to a doctor that's 10 miles or 10,000 miles away and can treat them. Maybe they can even dispatch little miniature drones to come and administer medicine. And so there's just amazing technologies and opportunities in front of us. And the innovation that underlies it, it doesn't surprise me that, like this vest that has become the stylish and really the most popular wear in Alaska, wasn't designed in New York or Paris, but it was designed in a garage in Cordova. The leading wave energy technology in the United States was not from the national labs, it was not from the corporations, it was from a kid in Cordova who built a wave energy generator with one partner in his garage and won the Department of Energy's WaveX prize, really just decimating the competition. But they grew up on the water, they understand it, and they understand the need for the energy. So we have much to share, we have even more to learn, and we look at making this journey together with you. Thank you.